Hi, welcome back to Bob's Woodshop. There's a lot of information out there about finishing. Things like what to use, the type of finish to use, how to apply it, whether to use a spray gun, whether to use a brush, whether to use a foam pad, whether to use a rag. There's not much about there on how to prepare your project for finish. So I got out there and looked around a little bit, and yeah, pretty much people say, well, yeah, you sand, you start with your 180 or your 150 and you sand through the grits. And a little bit out there tells you, some people stop at 150, some stop at 180, some stop at 220. So that can get a little confusing, I guess. When do you stop? And how much sanding do you need to do? Well, I use a random orbit sander, and nothing special. I use the Norton job packs. Get five discs for your sander. I got a DeWalt right here. And I hook my shop vac up to the dust port, and that really does a good job picking up the dust. I also got a rigid orbital sander, and they're both about the same, do the same thing. And I used to sand, I'd start with one grit and go through the grits, and next thing you know, you got sandpaper laying everywhere, tons of dust, and and you're still left with a little bit of a question. Well, did I sand enough? Is it smooth enough? So I think people get hung up on how smooth it is before you apply your finish. And then you see a little bit about tack cloths and things like that. And I don't use tack cloth, so I'm going to show you what I do. And hopefully, it helps you, and maybe you'll like the way I do it, and you'll give it a try. So these are two panels. They're the bottom shelves of a living room set that that I've been making, and these have the first coat of finish on them. So what I actually do is, I'm fortunate enough to have a drum sander, and what I do is I run pretty much everything through using, I think I got 100, or maybe, yeah, I think I got 100 grit, and that's my last sanding for the drum sander. I don't try and get down to 320 or 620 or 600 or none of that stuff. 100, all it does is I want the machine marks out and on the flat surface part, and that's done. So I run it through, get it like that, and it's okay. You can use a hand plane, you can use a random orbit sander to get your first initial flattening, I guess. And then, but it always leaves behind scratches, fine scratches from the aggressive grit sandpapers. So what I tried, and seems to work pretty well, is to use a card scraper. And at first it was a challenge because I didn't really know how to sharpen it, and I'm not going to show you how. There's a zillion videos out there on how to do it in different ways, and just about as many different ways as there are videos. One that I would encourage you to watch that I think is very good, and it works for me. I'm still working on tweaking how well I sharpen it or put an edge on it, and that's William Ing's video on finishing. And so basically all I do is I don't use a file. I use a sharpening stone, the wet stones, and I'll flatten both sides, and then I'll use a 90-degree block and go back and forth like this and get a good smooth edge. If I can run my finger down here and it doesn't drag at all, and on the side, then that's where I want to start. And then I take a burnisher, and I know I said I wasn't going to tell you how to do this, but I'm just saying how I do it. And I'm not good enough to get an edge on both sides, so what I do is I just draw out on the metal like this, nothing really hard, a couple times, and then turn it over, do the other side, draw the metal out a little bit, and then I'll take it at 90 degrees, run it down one time, and then maybe again, and then set at 90 and then go to about 3 to 5 degrees, and when I run my burnisher down the card scraper, I'll actually start at the tip and run it down this way, and I'll just do that maybe twice, and then I'll come over to my work and I'll give it a try like that and see how it does, see if I get a little bit of a curl. If it's not enough, I'll go back and I'll do it again. And I'll just keep doing that very lightly until I start to get a good curl and it's picking up the wood and smoothing it out. The reason you don't want to use a file is two reasons. It's much too aggressive and it'll leave little marks in the metal, and you'll get small scratches on your wood. So you really want it almost like a plane iron is what he recommends, but and not even a curl. You just want a little edge on it, something sharp enough that's gonna work the wood, and that works real well. And what I do is I go through it and I get it all the scratches off, and then I'll take 320 sandpaper for my first and last, well, my second sanding, and that's after it comes off the drum sander, and then I'll do the card scraper, and then I'll do the 320, and then I'll take a rag and I'll just kind of burnish the wood a lot, and I'll show you how that comes out. So right here, you can, I think you can see that there's virtually no scratches at all in that. All you see is the wood grain, okay? See that? And that's to 320. And I don't sand for a long time, just long enough to get it a little bit smoother, and then I'll burnish it with the rag. And then I'll take my blotch control, well, here I can show you, there's still some scratches, but it's on the tenon. Let's see, you can see where it's lighter along here. Those are pretty aggressive scratches in there, and that's okay, because that's going inside the mortise and it's going to get glue. So, and that won't be seen. But what I'll do is, I will not put the pieces together. I won't do my glue up. I'll take painter's tape or the frog tape or whatever, and I tape all my joinery that's going to be glued up. And then I use Armor Seal, and what I'll do is I'll use a foam brush, float a coat on there, and then just nothing heavy, but just enough to cover it, and I'll just leave it alone and the air bubbles dissipate. You don't see them, and then I'll come back and I'll hit it with the 320 again by hand, pardon me, and I'll go up to 4 coats, sanding between each coat lightly, very lightly, just enough to take any sheen that might be on there. You'll be able to tell, but like I said, very lightly. I just scuff it really like that, and I'm done. And my last coat, what I do is I don't sand at all. I take a rag and almost like you're gonna French polish it. And I dampen the rag, wad it up, and I dip it into the Armor Seal, and then I just buff like this with the wet, and that's my last coat, if you want to call it a fifth coat. But that's how I do my finishing, and then I do my glue up after all my pieces are completely finished. And that seems to work out pretty well for me. And it takes some of the tedious work out of the finishing process by pre-finishing everything before you put it together. Be sure to use clamping coils with rags in between if you have to, just so you don't mark your finish. And that's like I said, that's how I do it, and it works out really well. I have 2 or 3 pieces that I've made out of cherry that are in my house now. One of them is like 5 years, the other one's 2, 3, the other one's 3 years it's there. It's a pair of nightstands, and then I just did a bookshelf, Stickley number 74. It was in one of the magazines. They had the plans in there. And the finish is still hard as nails. I don't wax them. I don't apply any wax. I'll wait maybe a year later. I'll do a wax on it. You know, I'll put some I like feed-in wax, and that works really, really well as well. So I hope you enjoyed this little video on telling you how I do my finishing, and hope you give it a try. So thanks a lot. Y'all take care, and happy sanding.